Wow, after an introduction like that, I can't wait to hear what I got to say. And speaking of saying things, when I was given a tour of your beautiful campus today, Dean Carter and I were talking, and I said, I am glad, so glad to be here. And she said, without missing a beat, well, actually, there are 3 B's that we request of our speakers. And I was rather curious. I said, well, then please tell me, what are they? She said, be brief, be interesting, and be seated. So I'm going to try to, well, the conversation didn't actually go that way, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I am happy to be here. I'm happy that you have a president who thinks enough of Dr. King and what he stood for to be here. So first of all, I applaud you, President Carter. Thank you for being here. I want to thank also the other senior administrators and the long list of sponsors that are all part of this, and the Chamber of Commerce for co-sponsoring this event, and for the students, certainly, for being here. I am so proud, first of all, that with all the competition for time, and with all the criticism that people make of our young people, that they thought enough to be out here tonight, and I want to acknowledge that. Now, unlike other speakers you may have had or heard who can pretend to tell you what Dr. King would say if he were here, I'm not going to make that mistake. I don't know what Dr. King would say if he were here. And they don't either. So, but the good thing is, we don't have to wonder what he would say. We know for a fact what he did when he was alive, and we don't have to therefore engage in conjecture. While I am pleased to, I thank you for the applause, it's a relative of my family, of course, that I take around for occasions like this. One thing happens at the beginning of Dr. King's birthday, from then to the end of February, you hear a lot of I Have a Dream speeches, and I knew I would get it tonight, and yet I did. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a great speech. But I don't want us to be mistaken. You know, you hear that speech, and you hear him all the time, and people talk about the dream. Some people might think that's all he did was sleep. And, of course, we know that he did more than that. Let me give you a couple examples. Dr. King said in an interview before he died, of course, that's the only way you can have an interview before you die, he said he often works 20 hours a day. He traveled 325,000 miles a year. And over the course of a year, he averaged 450 speeches in 1 year. Now, I don't know when Dr. King had time to sleep, let alone dream. But he is still this epic figure. Why are we talking about Dr. Martin Luther King 42 years after his death? I submit to you that it's not because he won the Nobel Prize. It was not because of the I Have a Dream speech. We are still discussing Dr. King because at great personal risk, he helped bring about a fundamental change in our country. And when I say great personal risk, I mean things like having his home bombed, like receiving death threats and wondering about the very security of his own family. Now, this is not an academic exercise for me. Maybe I should go ahead and admit this up front. I tell people that I'm approaching 50, but I don't tell them from which direction. In my lifetime, this is not something I saw on Eyes on the Prize. Growing up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, I had to ride the back of the bus. They had colored and white water fountain, colored and white toilets. Even the advertising in the newspaper was segregated, marked white and colored. Things were so bad that I could get a job, my first job in journalism. I could get at Sports Illustrated magazine, but couldn't get a job at my hometown newspaper. So this man named Martin Luther King came to little places like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, more than once, and led demonstrations that broke down all the barriers. You know, you always see the March on Washington, but he was back in the little hamlets in Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia, again at great risk to himself. And Dr. Carver, what I think about when I think about this period, and I think about the contributions of Dr. King, I think about all the talent that left South Carolina, Alabama, and Mississippi and Georgia just so that people could have an opportunity to work and to excel. I just wonder where we would be if we had not had that brain drain and having people being forced to leave our region in order to make it in life. Now, in fairness to the South, and I consider myself a Southerner. I live in Washington, D.C., but I'm a Southerner. Always will be. And it's like a family. I can talk about the South, but nobody else can. We have our own fight. And so we can't just stop the story at where it was. We have to look at it now. And the South, more than any other region in the country, has more desegregated schools than any other region. The most segregated region is the Northeast. And so don't be picking on the South. Yeah, we went through our little changes, and we still got a long way to go. But I think, in a fundamental way, the change was more genuine. Because when you really change the mind of a Southerner, you really change your behavior, and you'll get a level of some sincerity that is hard to match in the other region in this country. And we, like I said, when people try to depict the South as being backwards, and yeah, we were backwards. Let's be honest. We were backwards on race. But so was this country from the beginning. And that's the beauty of Martin Luther King Jr. He saw the infinite possibilities of what we could be and what we should be and worked to make that a reality.